Senior military officers from countries planning a proposed peacekeeping force for Ukraine are due to meet in London today. More than 20 nations are thought to be involved in what the British Prime Minister has called the Coalition of the Willing. The group, led by Britain and France, is expected to discuss how a Western-led peacekeeping force would work in practice. It comes after President Trump suggested that the US could take ownership of Ukraine's nuclear power plants to help keep them safe. White House officials say the proposal was made during a phone call between Donald Trump and President Zelensky. The Ukrainian leader later said they discussed only the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, which is held by Russian forces. Paul Nott is a former British diplomat who served in both Ukraine and Russia. I asked him for his thoughts on today's meeting here in London.
I think it's an important meeting and another step in the process we've seen of building up momentum to put this force in place if it's needed, if some kind of agreement can be found. I think it's also an important part of sort of showing the Russians, showing Putin that whatever happens, support for Ukraine is going to continue, and Europe and its allies are going to continue to resist any continued aggression from Russia.
And important steps have been taken this week on many levels. Of course, we've got the phone call that happened between Vladimir Putin and President Trump, but also as well between President Zelensky and President Trump, which was very important for both leaders, given their last conversation was in the Oval Office.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the Americans, for all their suggestions of sort of heading in different directions, are going to remain important in this process. So it's very important for Ukraine, as I think other leaders, such as Prime Minister Starmer, have sort of impressed upon them to try and keep close to them and have productive relations with them. So yes, that was an important development.
What do you make of this idea of the US owning certain key power plants in Ukraine? I mean, President Zelensky saying they really only discussed the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, but the idea that they would be safer if owned by the US?
I think it's a little bit odd that maybe it's his sort of the kind of businessman he was for most of his life. President Trump's instinct always seems to go towards kind of acquiring some kind of property in the process. But if they were specifically talking about the Zaporizhzhia plant, which is currently occupied by Russia, then perhaps it's an idea worth exploring. And I think, if that was as far as we could get for now, it would be a net gain for Ukraine if the Americans were running that plan rather than the Russians, which comes with obviously all kinds of dangers. So.
I mean, it's not an operational plant at the moment, and it's said to take at least a few years before it could be up and running fully again. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's the case. But even nuclear plants that weren't until recently operations still require quite a lot, as I understand it. I'm no scientist, but to keep them in a safe condition, there is still a lot that needs to happen, and I think it's fairly clear that Russians can't really be trusted with that, and would be even if it was passed over to US operation, would be not inclined to attack it at least, and you would have probably sensible people actually sort of controlling the material and the facility there.